Welcome back, YouTubers, to another NXT review with me, Mr. Parkin, on behalf of the British Fist. We are still on the road to NXT TakeOver, which is going to be happening in about 3 weeks' time on May the 29th in a live 2-hour special on the WWE Network, featuring all the many NXT talents that we have on NXT. It should be good. Be there or be square. Also, if you have any comments on this NXT show or NXT in general, or indeed NXT TakeOver coming up later this month, please let me know down in the comments section below. So the first thing I want to discuss here is the NXT Women's Championship Tournament. We have the next 2 matches which were going to give us another semi-final spot in this tournament. The first of which was Emma versus Charlotte. You know, this match was going okay, and then Charlotte got the win after a pretty botched finishing sequence involving the Pink Cobra, which I guess is something WWE creative on Raw SmackDown have created for Emma, just making that gimmick quite silly, really. So it was a bit of a sloppy finish, in my opinion, to the match. I think Charlotte now pretty much has to be favourite here, especially after she pinned Paige a couple of weeks ago. You have to think that they're grooming Charlotte to be the next champion, especially now she's got NXT's version of Kelly Kelly in the next round as we go on to the next match, which is Alicia Fox versus Alexa Bliss. And we didn't really know too much about Alexa Bliss. We didn't really get a video package, or we didn't really know too much about her. We got a small pre-match interview, and that was pretty much it. And we kind of saw from her in-ring entrance that she was like a fairy doll cheerleader girl thing. I don't really know. I hope that we get to know a little bit more about Alexa Bliss as we go on. I guarantee you, though, by the way they booked this finish with the roll-up and everything, the WWE, at some point down the line, are probably going to try and make her into the new Kelly Kelly. Just look at the way they built that roll-up finish. It was very, very reminiscent of Kelly Kelly. So it's going to be Charlotte versus Alexa Bliss in the semi-finals of the NXT Women's Championship Tournament. Alexa Bliss getting a win over Alicia Fox on her debut in NXT. It doesn't really get much better than that for a debuting diva. That's all I will say. But yeah, that semi-final match is pretty conclusive. Charlotte will definitely win that, and I think we'll go on and face Natalya in the final. That's how I think it will happen anyway. Yay! 2 new tag teams! Yay! We get to see Ricardo Rodriguez on NXT. That's 2 reasons why I thought this segment was awesome. We basically had the Legionnaires, Sylvester Lafora and Marcus Louis, basically La Resistance version 2 in 2014, versus the Masked Mexicans in El Local and Kalisto. And I will say this, I was quite impressed with Kalisto in this match. You know, he's already better than Sin Cara purely because he didn't botch that much, and he offers something different just like Sin Cara did. And now he's going through developmental first rather than debuting on the main roster first. So he'll learn the WWE way of wrestling while incorporating his style of wrestling a little bit. I've been wondering when they're going to actually debut Kalisto on the NXT show, and pairing him with El Local, which we all know is Ricardo Rodriguez. Not a bad way to get him in, considering that we need new tag teams on the show, and that would be a good way to get himself on TV. So now it's really time to showcase these guys a little bit more. Even Los Legionnaires, I think that's a decent heel tag team to have, you know, including Ty Dillinger and Jason Jordan, you know, once they've decided a name on their tag team. That's another 3 tag teams on the show that we have, which is better than just 1 in the Ascension. So hopefully and Kalisto and maybe Ty Dillinger and Jason Jordan will be built up as the next sort of 2 big tag teams in NXT using the NXT talent. Otherwise, the Ascension are probably end up just going to go into the main roster, and there's just going to be no tag teams left. But thank God we finally trying to spotlight some new tag teams, which was really desperately needed in my opinion. So we had one of Adam Rose's entouraging wrestling party pooper Camacho. I must admit, this did make me laugh, especially considering the guy was called Captain Comic. And I will say this, the gimmick's kind of silly, but at least it wasn't your typical first name, second name wrestler, even though he was clearly a jobber guy who pretty much just loved to oversell. But again, I thought this was quite entertaining, just because basically it was Party Pooper Camacho just pretty much taking out Captain Comic, who basically never, ever, ever going to be competition for them, which begs the question, why would Adam Rose let one of his entourage go out there by himself when he clearly could not compete with a guy like Camacho and clearly was going to get beaten? I do have to question Adam Rose's loyalty to the Adam Rose entourage there and the Adam Rose Express. But hey, it's a way of continuing on a storyline. You had Adam Rose, you know, come out there at the end to try and get a piece of Camacho, who then went out the ring. You know, who else wishes Adam Rose was out there with Captain Comic as kind of like his cheerleader. I thought that would have made this segment a little bit more entertaining, even though it was entertaining enough as it was. So our main event on this week's edition of NXT was a #1 contendership battle royal to determine a #1 contender for the NXT Championship, which will be defended at NXT TakeOver. Now, this kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. I believe they announced it at the beginning or somewhere in the show. Again, I kind of thought this would be the kind of thing you'd want to kind of build up just a little bit, maybe announce a week in advance, you know, I'm just saying. And this was pretty much your standard battle royal. There wasn't really too much to say about it. They didn't really advance any storylines here either. I was kind of surprised that Corey Graves wasn't in there as well. But I thought at least here they may advance a couple of storylines maybe with Mojo Rawley and Aiden English being in there and them having a feud, and some of the tag teams are in there, and, you know, you had Mason Ryan in there. I thought they might use this time to maybe, you know, extend some feuds a little bit using this Battle Royal gimmick, kind of like WWE sort of do with the Royal Rumble. But I must admit, while this was a pretty standard Battle Royal, the results surprised me. You know, you had Sami Zayn and Tyson Kidd and Tyler Breeze all hitting the floor at the same time, and that causes confusion with the referees until Triple H comes out and sorts out shit by making a #1 contendership triple threat match next week on NXT, because the crowd know what's best for business. It's funny, isn't it, how on Raw and SmackDown and, you know, main event, etc., Triple H is this real, like, douchebag guy. But when it comes to NXT, which is his baby, let's not forget, he's like the ultimate authority good guy. You'd think with JBL being the GM, he'd be out there making this match. But, you know, Triple H has to also get his face on his baby show NXT. I must admit, though, I'm not sure why they needed to go through all this Battle Royal stuff just to get a triple threat match. I imagine it was there to create a little bit of drama, you know, to build next week's show, because now we know the main event of next week's show, you know, from this week. So at least they've, you know, done something there, which I really hope they do a little bit more, and announce the main event for next week in advance. So in that sense, I thought this Battle Royal did its job. I would have been a little bit happier with it. You know, we had the surprising result and the drama, etc. I'd have been a little bit more happier with it if they used it to advance a couple of storylines, though, going into TakeOver, especially with Mojo Rawley, Aiden English being in there, and a couple of other people in there, like the tag teams, who could be in some kind of feud, maybe going into NXT TakeOver. But I'm not complaining. I'm just, you know, saying that would have maybe done a little bit more, you know, for the match in total. But it's going to be Sami Zayn versus Tyson Kidd versus Tyler Breeze in a triple threat match to determine the #1 contender next week. Any of those three, I'd be pretty happy with. You know, Zayn and Kidd would be the two I would probably favour there. But any of those three, in my opinion, would be, you know, pretty worthy to face an Adrian Neville. What did I say last week about them building Tyson Kidd up to possibly go after the NXT Championship and to possibly have a big match at NXT TakeOver? I guess we'll find out next week if I'm right there. But if you beat Mason Ryan, who is now future endeavoured, unfortunately, along with Oliver Gray, and then Bo Dallas, who is the longest reigning NXT champion, in 2 weeks, you're going to be going to big things on NXT. But anyway, let's get on to overall thoughts now. I thought this show overall, you know, it was a pretty decent show. I felt, you know, you're building up a little bit more to NXT TakeOver with the Women's Championship Tournament, even though I don't think that's being done particularly brilliantly. I imagine going into the semi-final matches now, it'll be one match on the show, and the match will just feel a little bit more important. The first round matches have kind of felt like place fillers really more than anything, just to get to the kind of semi-obvious semi-final matches on here, and then the obvious final, which I believe is going to be Natalya versus Charlotte, even though it would be very interesting if it was Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. That would be quite interesting to see who should be the leader of the BFS. That would be interesting. And also, like I said, the Adam Rose segment I thought was entertaining. We got some new tag teams on the show, which is definitely needed, which is a massive plus, in my opinion. And the #1 contendership Battle Royal pretty much announced next week's main event, which should announce the main event for NXT TakeOver. So all in all, I thought this show was entertaining in its own way and did what it needed to do going into next week and hyping up NXT TakeOver. If you have any comments on this show, please do not hesitate to put them in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next week for another NXT review. It's been me, Mr. Parkin, on behalf of the British Fist, and goodbye.